Welcome to our Shield of the Sun video entitled Vince McMahon. Let us examine Illuminati blue blood of the Kennedy Illuminati family, a man by the name of Vincent Kennedy McMahon, the owner of World Wrestling Entertainment, formerly the World Wrestling Federation, and a worldwide media owner where only Ted Turner is his equal. Vincent McMahon was born on August 24, 1945, in Pinehurst, North Carolina. His father was Illuminati blue blood by the name of Vincent J. McMahon, who was blood related to the Kennedy family and worked for the Illuminati in the professional wrestling business. His father treated his mother like a whore and impregnated her, and once he found out she was pregnant, she demanded a marriage, but Vince Sr. hated her and used her, and at first disowned the child and left her. When Vince grew up and was raised by his mother ran through a string of boyfriends. Often these boyfriends would abuse and use his mother and her son, Vince Jr., often beating his mother and him when he tried to defend her. The worst of them was a man named Leo Lumpton, who would often and sadistically beat Vince and his mother. Vince's mother was a superstitious woman who was clever at hustling but had bad choices in the men she sought. She was demon-possessed and herself came from a broken home. Her good looks and personality attracted rich men to her, hence Vince's father, but her relationships often ended badly and brutally, with domestic violence always a mainstay. Vince's mother was not a Christian, and obviously his father was not either, but an Illuminatiist. His mother was worldly, more of a New Ager. Vince loved his mother, but he resented her for her choices in men, and the things she allowed them to do to her and young Vince. Soon Satan wanted Vince Sr. to reclaim the child he disowned, for Satan had a plan for him, and he wanted him to serve the Illuminati. Soon Vince Sr. contacted Vince's mother, seeking to have only his son in his life privately, while promising money to hand him over, which handing Vince over to his father was handing him to the Illuminati. At age 12, Vince met his father for the first time, and he was scared of this man. When Vince was with his father, he was being trained in the ways of the Illuminati, learning about his satanic heritage, and learning to worship Satan, and performing horrible, abusive, bloody rituals, and learning their doctrine and how, through blackmail and murder, a person comes up in the world. These are the things Vince's father taught him. Vince's father worked as owner and promoter of the WWF at the time, which became the WWF and later WWE. Vince's father was involved with mind control, which falls with the CIA, and the illegal growth hormone and pain-resistant drugs, and he was involved in recruiting wrestlers into the satanic occult and having them brainwashed and their bodies enhanced through these experimental drugs of the Illuminati that worked at the time but had later on awful side effects on the wrestlers' mentality and physicality. Vince's father did this work in collaboration with the CIA, and also Vince Sr. worked with the Mafia regarding union workers, the arenas where the shows are done, collecting payments from drug deals and prostitution among wrestlers, and recruiting athletes for the wrestling business. The Mafia also kills certain dissenter wrestlers or people in that business who have betrayed them in some way, or stole from them, or did something they did not like. Many wrestlers were assassinated from frame-ups, and their deaths were made to look like overdoses or a suicide. This has been going on in the wrestling business for a long time now, since it first started in this fashion in the early 1900s. This is the business that Vince Sr. wanted Vince Jr. to get involved with, and he introduced Vince as a teenager to the ways of mafia control in the business and their work with covert government agents. Vince was introduced to this world before he went to college, and his father taught him macho pride, and to mistreat women, and to force his hand at all times. Vince learned how the system in this world and in this country worked, and he sought to take full advantage of it. Vince's career was planned by the Illuminati, but Vince also had some ulterior motives. Vince went to college and as planned got a business degree. He immediately went to work for several Illuminati fronts as a promoter in the boxing business and the stunt show business and the rock music business, where he met a lot of musicians who later came to work for him, creating musical theme songs for his wrestlers. Vince was to set up the concerts and shows of these endeavors. He even put together the Muhammad Ali versus Antonio Inoki match in 1976, and he worked also in his father's wrestling company. Vince's job was to make sure people were kept in line and things went right and the money was made, and he had a brutal talent for doing this, often having people beaten or they just plain disappeared. You can guess that they're not alive anymore, and he even had people raped to keep them in line. He even did some of the raping himself. Behind the scenes he was ruthless and feared, and he rose up among the Illuminati ranks and began to appear on television as a WWF announcer. Vince would meet a woman named Linda, and he ended up marrying Linda, who came also from a blue blood Illuminati family, and she too was ambitious for power like her husband was. The two of them would brainstorm many plans, and one plan they came up with was to steal his father's company, and Satan revealed to them that putting his Hollywood art form upon the product was the key to turning the brand into a worldwide phenomenon. People would be spellbound by it like they are to movies. Vince received this plan from Satan when he was the owner of Cape Cod Coliseum, where he promoted hockey games, concerts, and pro wrestling. Linda, his wife, was owner of Titan Sports at the time of the idea, the company that would one day make toys of WWF wrestlers that sold in the millions. Vince and Linda, after the marriage, took their two companies and merged them, and Vince started to have his father's employees harassed or informed that Vince Jr. was now going to start running things, for Vince and Linda now vehemently sought ownership of the WWF at the time, so that they can put their plan into motion, which was Satan's plan. Vince Sr. resented what his son was doing, but his son became too powerful for him. The student upped the satanic teacher, and Vince then forced his father into retirement, and him and Linda bought the company and became the owners. When Vince bought the company, professional wrestling was a business run by regional offices. The various promoters shared an understanding that they would not invade each other's territories, as this practice had gone on undetoured for decades. Vince had other ideas, and sought to challenge them and put them out of business. Vince had the Illuminati Mafia and unions and Hollywood TV connections to back him up, and by force, blackmail, robbery, and even murder, Vince first started taking talent from the other companies like the AWA, where he stole Hulk Hogan and several others, and from the NWA he stole Roddy Piper, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and several others, and he continued his ruthless double-dealing ways when he began expanding the company nationally by promoting in areas outside of the company's Northeast U.S. stomping grounds. Vince shared Satan's vision for the company among the wrestlers, and he focused much of the plan toward Hulk Hogan. Vince brought Hulk Hogan into the Illuminati, and Hogan learned about the New Age message the company was going to send, using Hollywood's art form upon it to enhance storytelling and to spellbound the audience, which is to use evil spirits to influence the matches and the stories, to corrupt the people and make them addicted to the product. The top wrestlers of that time in the WWF knew that was the agenda of their company, some having more knowledge about it than others. Satan showed Vince Hulk Hogan's potential and what he will become to the people if he sets him up in the way in which he tells him. Vince and other writers brought in from Hollywood began to go into states of automatic writing, where they created the characters in the image of the wrestlers and the storylines to go with them that were long enough to fill several years, as they pre-planned their matches, feuds, and what titles they would win. Vince's vision for his company was coined by him in the media to be called sports entertainment, as a way to separate the product from the more traditional companies. During the invasions of other territories, Vince had the mob to protect the wrestlers and his employees from the henchmen of the regional bosses, known as the Southern Mafia, who were Southern Illuminati family members who were Southern traditional. They greatly hated what Vince was doing, for he was seeking to take over the entire business and all the fans, and take all the talent and to consume everything, including their tradition regarding professional wrestling that got started among the Southerners in the past. This ends our video for part 1.